Here's the big idea for today is that we don't exist for ourselves, that God blesses us so that we can be a blessing to the world around us. And we believe that was established not just any time recently, that thinking, that idea that God blesses his people to be a blessing goes all the way back to almost the very beginning of time, to the very beginning of humanity, that you exist right here in this space on purpose. One of the greatest lies that our culture has whispered is that your life is random, that you are a product of chance. The scripture tells us completely something different. It paints a completely different story. It says that you are here and you have been placed, not just you, that you were born on purpose, but that you have been placed in the spot that you are right now in history, in East County on purpose. And that he's positioned us and put us in places so that we could be a blessing, and that through you being in the place you are being, in the neighborhood you live in the workplace you are, in the school you are, no matter where you're at, that others could come to know God through you. You're not here by accident. In the spaces you're at, in every space you're in, your presence matters there, and you've been given a purpose in that space to be the light of the world. To bring God's light into the spaces that he's invited you to be. GPS is incredible on your phones, but in order for GPS to be able to work, it has to determine your exact location first, right? It has to determine where you're at so it can determine where you go. God knows exactly where you're at. And he knows exactly where he wants to take you. And he knows the purpose and the plans he has for you. But God sees and knows where you're at right now. Not just physically, but he knows where you're at spiritually. He knows where you're at emotionally. He knows where you're at. And he takes care to see you and care about you. The Bible affirms this when it talks about how God he knows us so intimately that he has every hair on our head numbered, that he knows exactly who you are, and he loves you right where you're at. But he's inviting you to continue on this great adventure, to follow him, to live your life for more than just yourself, to live on purpose, to recognize that you exist here on earth for a purpose, that you are not your own, that you have been bought with a price, so that we get to glorify God in the way that we live, in the way that we exist. So let me ask you, are you seeing your daily spaces as mission fields to bring the goodness of God into every space that you're in? What if we began to pray, Lord, today I just want you to use me in my workplace? What if we saw our desks or our seats or the places we're at, not just as a desk, but as a pulpit, as a place to minister from? What if we viewed our neighborhood as not just the place we live, but the people around us as the people God's entrusted to you to impact and to love in his name, to be the light of the world in that space? Because the more we become like Jesus, we just live like Jesus lived, and Jesus just lived to be a blessing, right? He healed the sick, he fed the hungry, he forgave sinners, he touched the untouchables. Jesus himself said it like this in Mark chapter 10. He said, "For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve and give his life as a ransom for many." Jesus poured out his life. The 3 years he had here on earth, he lived every moment to be a blessing to others. Because here's what I believe when it comes to blessing others, and the reason we're talking about spiritual giftedness is that I think so many times we can get a little frustrated or burnt out on serving if our motivation is just to serve because we have been told to serve. You can get kind of burnt out on that. But when you begin to view it as blessing others through how God's already wired you and given you a gift to, when you begin to serve out of your spiritual giftings, I think two things happens. You bless others more effectively and you experience more joy. Because God's given you a portion of, He's given you a portion of blessing. And so it's like, man, use that. Use it to serve others. Just like the song at the altar we sang, God can take our brokenness, can take the mess of what we do, and we can say, God, I don't even know how to do this, but here's what I have. And in this beautiful way, God takes that and takes our heart that wants to just bless others and says, I can work with that. And in that brokenness, he can make it beautiful.